Back in 1978 in Chicago, everyday life looked different, and this is how a Saturday at the mall really felt at the time. Do you remember the sheer weight of those heavy glass doors sliding open on a freezing weekend morning? You would step out of the bitter wind blowing off Lake Michigan and immediately feel a rush of warm air hit your face. People would stomp the snow off their boots on the thick entrance mats, dropping their car keys deep into the pockets of heavy winter coats. It felt like stepping into a completely different world, safely insulated from the gray winter skies outside. We are not just talking about the major headlines or what was playing on the evening news back then. We are talking about how families actually spent their time when the weekend finally arrived. The mall in those days was not just a quick stop to pick up a single item and rush back out. It was a genuine event, a place where the steady hum of overlapping conversations echoed down long, brightly lit concourses. The air always carried a faint, sweet smell of roasted almonds, blending with the aroma of fresh coffee from the nearby kiosks. It felt vibrant, yet entirely unhurried. There was a comforting rhythm to those afternoons that many people still remember fondly today. Take a moment and picture those heavy glass doors opening for you once again. Try to recall the very first sound you would hear when you walked inside from the cold. What store did your family always head to first when you finally escaped the Chicago winter? Take a moment to share your warmest memory in the comments below, and let us walk through those doors together. Before you even reach those welcoming glass doors, the entire experience began out in the massive, sprawling parking lots of the late 70s. You would pull into a spot driving a Chevy Nova, a Ford Pinto, or maybe one of those heavy, long, wood-paneled station wagons. There were no digital backup cameras glowing on the dashboard, and you never heard the constant, anxious beeping of modern parking sensors. It was just the raw sound of tires crunching over the salted, icy asphalt, and the solid clunk of heavy metal car doors slamming shut across the frozen lot. Families remember wrapping their scarves a little tighter, memorizing their parking row by a simple letter on a concrete light pole, and leaning forward together into the bitter wind. It was a very different time for how we connected and communicated with one another. Nobody had a cell phone tucked into their coat pocket or a glowing screen constantly demanding their immediate attention. If a group of teenagers or a large family decided to split up to visit different areas, they had to make a firm, unbreakable plan. You would look down at your mechanical wristwatch and agree to meet by the main water fountain at exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon. If someone was running a little late, you simply sat on a wooden bench, watched the crowds go by, and trusted they would eventually show up. There was absolutely no way to send a quick text message to track them down. Because of that simple reality, a weekend afternoon in 1978 actually felt longer, providing a deeply peaceful kind of freedom. Once you walked inside that massive building, you were completely disconnected from the outside world in the best way possible. There were no urgent work emails quietly following you around, and no constant digital notifications buzzing to rush you along your way. The pressures of the world outside those walls simply stopped mattering for a few uninterrupted hours. Many people look back now and realize that this quiet, unhurried existence is exactly what made those Saturday trips feel so incredibly special. You were entirely present in the moment, sharing space with your neighbors, with nowhere else you urgently needed to be. Once you fully embraced that unhurried mindset, the actual journey always began by stepping through the grand entrance of a massive anchor store. For many families in the Chicago area, that meant walking directly into the sprawling, multi-level world of Marshall Field's, or perhaps the practical, brightly lit aisles of a Sears. If you entered through Marshall Field's, your senses were immediately greeted by the elegant, overwhelming aroma of the ground floor perfume counters. You can probably still picture the bright, warm, incandescent bulbs reflecting off the pristine glass display cabinets, making every crystal bottle look like a precious gem. The atmosphere there held a certain kind of quiet dignity that you simply do not see anymore. The aisles were incredibly wide, covered in thick plush carpeting that completely silenced your footsteps as you browsed through the racks of heavy winter coats and neatly folded sweaters. You were helped by impeccably dressed salespeople who knew their departments perfectly, standing behind the heavy wooden counters with genuine pride. They did not just scan a barcode and hand you a plastic bag while looking away. They would take their time, carefully writing out your paper receipt by hand with a blue ballpoint pen and wrapping your purchase with deliberate care in crisp tissue paper. The solid mechanical sound of a heavy cash register ringing up a sale, followed by the satisfying slide of the cash drawer, felt like a permanent fixture of the afternoon. Every family had their own specific routine when they arrived at the building. Did your family start at Sears for tools and appliances, or head straight to the clothing racks at Marshall Field's? Let us know your traditional route in the comments below. Leaving the quiet, carpeted elegance of the anchor store, you would step out into the wide, bustling corridors of the main mall concourse. The acoustic shift was immediate and unforgettable. There was a very distinct, echoing hum created by hundreds of people talking at once, the sound rising up and bouncing off the high architectural skylights. Drifting softly just beneath that ocean of voices, barely noticeable but always present, was the gentle orchestral sound of Muzak playing from invisible ceiling speakers. It was a comforting, continuous soundtrack that followed you everywhere you went, tying the whole massive building together into one cohesive experience. As you strolled down the wide tiled walkways, dodging groups of teenagers in bell-bottom jeans and families pushing heavy metal strollers, the visual landscape shifted with every storefront you passed. You might see the glowing, colorful neon signs of Spencer Gifts, pulling people in with the promise of blacklight posters, lava lamps, and novelty items that always smelled faintly of sweet incense. A few doors down, the atmosphere would completely change as you stepped into the quiet, brightly lit sanctuary of Walden Books. You could actually smell the crisp paper and binding glue as you ran your hands over the glossy covers of new hardcovers displayed proudly on the front tables. For music lovers, a trip was never truly complete without a long, dedicated stop at Camelot Music or a similar neighborhood record shop. People remember the exact physical sensation of standing at those low wooden bins, rapidly flipping through hundreds of vinyl records. You could hear the rhythmic thumping sound of heavy cardboard album sleeves hitting against one another, searching patiently for the perfect album to take home and play on the living room stereo. Eventually, all that walking on the hard promenade tiles would lead you toward the absolute heart of the building, drawn by an entirely new set of sensory details. The smell of the food courts and scattered standalone kiosks in the late 70s was absolutely unmistakable and deeply comforting. Long before sprawling, high-end gourmet food halls existed, there was the simple, sugary magic of an Orange Julius kiosk operating right in the middle of the walkway. If you close your eyes, you can almost taste that incredibly unique, frothy, icy sweet, vanilla and orange drink melting on your tongue after a long hour of shopping. Maybe your particular weakness was the warm, yeasty scent of a freshly baked, heavily salted pretzel handed to you in a thin, translucent paper sleeve. With your treats securely in hand, the natural gathering place for the entire community was always the massive water fountain located right in the center court. These fountains were grand architectural centerpieces, usually surrounded by wide brick ledges or built-in wooden benches where tired shoppers could sit and rest their aching feet. You could smell the faint, clean hint of indoor pool chlorine mingling with the rich aromas of roasted nuts and baked goods from the nearby stalls. If you leaned over the wide brick edge, you would see thousands of shiny copper pennies and silver dimes resting gracefully on the turquoise tiles beneath the rippling water. Each one of those submerged coins represented a silent wish made by a child who had passed through that exact spot earlier in the day. Nothing quite matched the simple joy of eating mall food back then, sitting quietly while watching the entire community walk by. If you can still remember the exact flavor of your favorite mall treat, drop it in the comments below. While the adults rested their feet by the soothing sounds of the water fountain, the younger generation had their own dedicated territories within the sprawling complex. Down a slightly darker hallway, you would always find a dense crowd of teenagers gathered around the entrance of the local arcade, a dimly lit room glowing with colorful, flashing screens. Even from a distance, you could hear the chaotic electronic symphony of early video game sound effects echoing out into the main concourse. The mechanical clanking of heavy brass tokens dropping into metal coin slots was the defining rhythmic soundtrack of a teenager's Saturday afternoon. Kids stood shoulder to shoulder in the semi-darkness, their faces illuminated by the neon glow, entirely captivated by the descending aliens of Space Invaders or the sharp bells of a mechanical pinball machine. The carpet in those arcades usually featured wild, geometric patterns that seemed to glow under the blacklights, masking the scent of warm electronics and ozone. What makes looking back at these specific moments so deeply touching today is the profound sense of communal safety that surrounded the entire experience. Parents felt completely comfortable letting their children roam free through the arcade and the adjacent concourses for hours at a time without strict supervision. A mother could be trying on winter shoes 2 anchor stores away, perfectly confident that her kids were safe, entertained, and exactly where they promised to be when it was time to leave. It was a beautifully self-contained universe with its own unspoken rules, its own distinct youthful culture, and a comforting predictability that firmly anchored our weekends. That profound sense of predictable safety we felt in those arcades extended to the very rhythm of how we interacted with the adult world, a rhythm that has quietly slipped away over the decades. When you finally gathered your family and walked up to a cash register with your chosen items, the entire process required a certain kind of patient grace. You would stand in a slow-moving line, casually looking around at the store displays, without feeling that burning modern urge to stare down at a glowing screen. When it was your turn, you would open your leather wallet, pull out a physical checkbook, and take the time to carefully write out the date and the exact amount in cursive. Alternatively, you might slowly count out crisp paper bills, waiting as the cashier carefully counted your change back into your open palm. There was always a quiet, polite conversation with the person behind the wooden counter, an exchange of easy small talk about the freezing Chicago weather or the upcoming holidays. The transaction was never rushed, and it was never punctuated by the frantic, high-pitched beeping of a modern laser barcode scanner. It was just 2 people completing a simple task at a gentle, human pace. This deeply unhurried pace is exactly what allowed the shopping mall to serve as the true, beating heart of the local community. Because everyone in town physically went to the exact same building to buy their winter coats, household hardware, and holiday gifts, you were practically guaranteed to cross paths with someone you knew. You would be walking past a brightly lit window display and suddenly lock eyes with your next-door neighbor, your child's math teacher, or a friendly coworker from the office. These wonderful chance encounters would often lead to standing right in the middle of the wide concourse for 20 minutes, happily catching up on neighborhood news while other shoppers politely navigated around your group. Today, the world operates on a completely different frequency. We simply press a button on a glass screen from the absolute quiet comfort of our living rooms, and a plain cardboard box magically appears on our front porch a few days later. It is undeniably faster and incredibly convenient, but the entire process has become a much more solitary experience. As the long afternoons slowly drifted into early evening, you would gather your families and your purchases to begin the long walk back out into the cold. There was a very specific, satisfying physical sensation of carrying heavy, thick paper shopping bags by their stiff, twisted handles. Each bag proudly displayed the distinct, colorful logo of a beloved department store, rustling loudly against your heavy winter coat as you walked. You would push through those heavy glass doors just as the winter sky was turning a deep twilight blue, your arms full of crinkling paper bags that held actual weight, effort, and substance. Looking back at those fading habits, it is easy to see how much the landscape of our daily lives has shifted. We shop differently today, and that is perfectly okay. But if you genuinely miss the warm feeling of actually running into a neighbor while shopping, you are definitely not alone. Hit the like button if you still remember those beautiful chance encounters and the quiet joy of a much slower afternoon. Stepping back out into that freezing Chicago evening, the final ritual of the day was always the long, bracing walk to your car. The vast parking lot was now completely dark, illuminated only by the tall sodium vapor streetlights that cast a warm orange glow across the freshly fallen snow. You would unlock the heavy metal trunk and carefully place those thick paper shopping bags inside, hearing the satisfying thud as the lid slammed shut. Climbing into the freezing front seat, you would start the engine and wait patiently for the heater to kick in. You could watch your own breath form small clouds of white mist against the frosty windshield. It was a quiet, exhausting, but deeply satisfying end to a long afternoon spent entirely in the company of your neighbors. Today, you might drive past the exact locations where those massive buildings once stood. You might notice that many have closed their doors forever, while others have completely transformed into something unrecognizable. The physical brick walls, the grand water fountains, and the brightly lit neon signs of our youth might be gone. However, the profound feeling of a Saturday in 1978 was absolutely real and completely valid. Some say that was a time when shopping was still a true community event, rather than just another solitary chore on a busy modern checklist. It was a beautifully unique era that simply cannot be recreated with a digital screen or a cardboard delivery box. Every time I think of the mall in the late 70s, I always remember that welcoming rush of warmth when coming inside from the bitter cold. What is your absolute warmest memory from visiting your own local mall back then? When those heavy glass doors opened for you, what specific store did you always want to visit first? The comment section below is completely open, and I genuinely read every single one of your stories. Let us take a few minutes today to look back together, and please share some of your favorite memories.